Hi there and welcome to the channel of A Disappointed Man with me, Jason Kennedy, the Disappointed Man. And in this very short video I will deal with two things that I've read in the last week. They're mercifully brief and I will just speak about them for a few minutes. The first one is, I'm going to be very careful because I keep saying Henry Miller and having to film the video again. It's Henry James and it's Daisy Miller, 1878 short story. Now, when I reviewed Under Western Eyes, we kind of finished in Geneva, and this story also has a connection with Geneva because Winterbourne, the male lead, that's where he resides, although we never actually visit Geneva during the course of the story. The story begins in another part of Switzerland where Winterbourne encounters Daisy Miller, this young American. And as the story makes very clear, the narrator and Winterbourne and his circle, she is not of the same social rank as them. And although she's wealthy, it comes from trade. And so we do see in this story the way in which American high society kind of perpetuated European notions of social rank, even after they've begun to fade from old Europe. And so Winterbourne tries to form a kind of attachment with Daisy Miller. And this is where we get into typical Henry James territory, because Daisy Miller's responses are essentially very difficult to read, very difficult to decipher. And much of the story is taken up with Winterbourne's, as he says, chopping logic, trying to work out precisely what kind of person she is, and specifically it returns upon the question of how innocent she is. Is she innocent or not? So how much you're going to enjoy it will depend firstly upon if you do appreciate that kind of screen that's set up where you can't really access what is the, what should we call it, the truth of a situation, which is a common theme in Henry James. We find it in Turn Up the Screw, we find it in the Aspern Papers, which I praised in a previous video, and we find it here, but here it's done in a very slender, slight way, which for myself I did not find absolutely gripping, well, not at all gripping in truth. I did not really invest in wishing to know who Daisy Miller might truly be. And the story moves to Rome, and here Winterbourne kind of is frustrated at every turn because Daisy Miller picks up with this Italian lawyer called Giovanelli, who's very dapper, and they're always kind of together in conference, and they're quite happy to tolerate his presence, but he can't really get what he wants, which is Daisy Miller's attentions for himself. And finally it winds down when Daisy Miller goes on an ill-advised trip to the Colosseum to see it by moonlight with her Italian paramour, or amoroso, switching languages for a moment. And it's from this that she contracts Roman fever, malaria, and succumbs in a matter of days, and her Italian gentleman keeps his distance. What a cad, what a bounder. And she perishes. And at the end, we're back once again where the story began 1 year later, with Winterbourne kind of chastising very gently his wealthy aunt, saying maybe they could have made a little bit more of that attachment, maybe you could have been a little more charitable to her, a little less judgmental. And then he says, well, I was due to make a mistake. So there we have it. It wasn't the most thrilling read. I share it with you because you could pick it up and read it if you wish. You could have already read it and affirm my judgment. You could have already read it and reject my opinion and wish to take up the cudgels of debate with me. Do what you wish. But what I'm going to do is I can't just say, well, this wasn't very good, so steer clear. I'm going to suggest that this story, the title story here, Edith Wharton's 1934, Roman Fever, may even have some kind of intertextual relationship with Daisy Miller. You decide, because it does feature a moonlit rendezvous at the Colosseum, which has very productive consequences. But what I wish to say here is that Edith Wharton also moved in the highest echelons of New York society. So she knew this world as well as James did. And they had a relationship with him as the older mentor figure and her as the protege. But Edith Wharton is 100 times the writer that Henry James is, in my estimation. And just this title story from this collection, I won't address like the rest of the collection, I'll do that in another video, but it's magnificent. It's so beautifully observed. It doesn't feature all of the winding sentences of a Henry James, but it's acute, and it has one of the most tremendous payoffs in its conclusion that I think you'll find in any short story you may care to name. And so, what we have here is one short story that I'm not truly enamored of, by a man who has his place in the canon. He's not going to be dislodged by a video by The Disappointed Man, much as it pains me, and he's still receiving a lot of attention inside the Academy. And then we have Edith Wharton's wonderful Roman Fever, which eclipses James's effort in every way. And if you're not familiar with this story, you may well have read Edith Wharton, but you may not have read this story. I seriously recommend you pick it up. It's only about 19 pages, but what a wonderful 19 pages it is. And that is all I have to say in another one of my short videos. Thank you for watching. I'm now on 61 subscribers. Can we please try and reach 70 sometime soon? And I'm going to leave you. I shall repeat my mantra. Be safe, be strong, and I shall see you anon. Nanu nanu.